Are you a parent wondering if you're doing right by your kids?
A therapist seeking real-world applications for working with children and their families?
A teacher trying to navigate educating the whole child in today's world?
Then this is the podcast for you.
Hey guys, it's Brigid
And Jenna.
the teacher.
And the therapist.
Hey.
Hello, episode 2 and 4. 2, 4.
2, 4.
24.
2, 4, 6, 8.
We almost made it a quarter of a decade. Nope.
Sorry, what?
Nope. I meant century. Quarter of a century.
A quarter of a decade. We almost made it 2.5 episodes. Oh my. All right.
That's why I didn't go into the maths.
Oh my gosh, I hate math.
All of them.
Maths for our British listeners.
Yes.
Do they call it maths in Australia too?
Probably.
We do have a couple Australian listeners.
I know we do.
I guess we should find out.
Down under.
Is it maths? What do you call it down under?
Please rate us.
Please do.
So, Brigid, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about a topic that is just
Dun, 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 dun.
so pertinent in my life.
Yes.
Picky eaters
Ugh.
and new foods.
Love them. Hate them.
Exactly.
You have one. And
Oh.
Not you. I mean, like, everybody has. You know one.
Yeah.
Everyone knows one.
You are one.
You are one. You know
Yes.
one. Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Picky eaters.
You want to tell us what picky eating is? What does that even mean?
Yeah. So a picky eater, by definition, is going to be someone who eats a limited amount of foods,
Mm-hmm.
unwillingness to try new foods,
Mm-hmm.
strong food preferences,
Mm.
and they typically are going to prefer snacks over meals.
So every toddler in America.
Yes. 100% yes.
Qua. Okay. I do want to put a little clinical note in here. One thing picky eating is not. There's actually an eating disorder that many people, experts, like professionals, like, it might be, I'm not calling anyone out, but it could even be that you're like, hey, pediatrician at their wellness visit, like, I feel they're not eating foods, and they'll be like, oh, they're just a picky eater. They're just a picky eater. Parents hear that a lot. But there is an eating disorder called ARFID, which stands for Avoidant Restrictive Food Intake Disorder. So there's actually, it's diagnosable. There's, the DSM, we still got to do that whole episode on that, but we've talked about it before. So there is going to be, it's more severe. So there's going to be significant weight loss or failure to thrive, depending when it begins.
Mm-hmm.
Significant nutritional deficiency. So if you do a blood test, they're really low on things. And obviously that can cause other problems if they don't have enough calcium, if they don't have enough, their bones, their teeth, all of those things, their iron, and then there's sometimes they even need oral supplements, or they need feeding tubes. I mean, you can be hospitalized for it because it can be very debilitating. And it often causes psychosocial problems because you don't want to eat around other people. You get very anxious. You probably don't want to go to restaurants or cook, things like that. So, and of course, it's all the other things that it's in the DSM. It's not because of another mental disorder. It's not because of a medical disorder, yada, yada.
Yeah, because I think of my kids just got over norovirus,
Mm-hmm.
and it was
sure.
quite a while after that they wouldn't eat anything. Quite a while.
Right.
But it's still as a result of that medical illness. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, that kind of goes into this too. So, yeah, first of all, I think we all can have food aversions. I don't know.
Sure.
We're not going to get too graphic, but I know there have been times where I've, I ate a meal and then I ended up with a stomach bug or a... What?
Sorry, my poor husband is all I can think. Continue.
And then, I get the stomach flu or something and get sick off of it. Then I don't want to eat that food again. Apparently,
100%.
Brigid's husband understands me, I hope he listens.
Because we just had this norovirus go through my house, and whatever we ate the night before, I don't even remember, but
he's like,
I
that's a
obviously
no-go.
no, it was me.
Oh, it was
I got
you.
sick, and he said something like, "Great, we can't eat this again for like 3 years."
Which is true.
I was like, "I'm sorry."
He knows what he's talking about. Yeah, broccoli cheddar soup was rough for me for a couple years there.
I couldn't eat Jimmy John's for so long.
I love Jimmy John's.
It was horrible.
I love it.
My gosh.
However, so I mean, yeah, we all have those aversions, and so something like that, you get over the norovirus, you might not want to eat. You want to be real careful. So you're on the brat diet. You keep yourself on the brat diet maybe longer than you need to. And there's also different kinds of ARFID. So sensory, we'll see ARFID a lot in neurodivergent kids. It's just autism, things like that. It could be the texture, it could be the taste, it could be the smell, it could be the color, it could be the temperature. So, like I saw like a show, this was way back when, that I don't even think I realized it was like an eating disorder at the time or ARFID at the time. But now from like a clinical lens, I can look back at it and see potentially that's what was going on. She could only eat very cold foods to the point where she would like put ice cubes in her cereal, like milk in her, in her milk and cereal, so that it was very, very cold. So it could be temperature, it could be any number of like sensory type components. Adverse consequences,
Wait, can we go back to the sensory real quick? Sorry. Just as like a disclaimer, again, you can have this and it's not ARFID. Like, you can, I mean, there's grown adults who are like, I can't eat cottage cheese. That texture is too
weird.
much.
Yeah.
Like, or whatever.
Yes,
that's a very common thing. So if your child is like, I don't like that, it feels weird, or it looks funny, that does not mean that your child has this, because you can have these sensory food issues separately.
And you're just,
I just don't want people to be like, oh my gosh, my kid said that texture was weird. They won't eat anything that texture.
Right.
It's not necessarily related.
Right. Absolutely. That's a good point. I'm glad you like interjected that, because for sure, sometimes textures are just weird.
Right.
Or colors.
Like cottage cheese is really the one that comes to mind. How do you eat cottage cheese? If you eat cottage cheese, please tell me how, because ew.
I used to as a kid. I don't know. Then I was like, I can't do that anymore. So the first type of ARFID is sensory. Second type is kind of what we were referring to with like the norovirus, of adverse consequences. So they're afraid of feeling nauseous, of vomiting, of choking, of having an allergic reaction. So certainly ARFID can develop from something like they do have an allergic reaction, but then it kind of generalizes and they're like, but what if there's peanuts in this? And so they won't eat anything, because they're so worried about it. And then the third one is like just true lack of interest. They might not feel hungry. They might feel full really fast. They're just not interested in new foods or any food, really. But there are similarities to quote unquote picky eating. Extremely, extremely limited amount of food. Like very limited types of food. Count on one hand foods that you eat. And typically, you're going to, a lot of times with ARFID, which this could be true of picky eating too. With ARFID, it's going to be like processed foods. And there's a reason for that. So again, a lot of parents can get flack of, oh my gosh, you're just giving them junk. You're just letting them eat chips. You're just letting them eat animal crackers or goldfish. But the reason for that, what is the reason for that, do you think? Because it sounds like you know. Do you know?
The reason for why they like that?
Why? Yeah, processed food.
Because it's predictable.
It's predictable, exactly. Yeah. If, I can make chicken, but every time I make that same chicken recipe, it turns out differently. Or mashed potatoes or whatever.
Or there are so many different ways to prepare chicken that it's like...
just period.
Yeah.
Let alone one recipe. It's like, hey, like if my mom makes spaghetti, it can, even if she uses the same recipe and the same sauce, it can taste different every time. So SpaghettiOs are pretty predictable.
Listen, I loved SpaghettiOs.
There you go.
And when I was a child, SpaghettiOs were it. And if you got SpaghettiOs with meatballs, I would die. I hate them. I could not.
You didn't.
I couldn't. You could not put meatballs in my SpaghettiOs. You ruined it.
Oh.
Nor could you just pick them out. It has been ruined. Okay.
Oh, I was thinking those were like extra special.
No. Oh my gosh. If there were meatballs in it. Oh, and those ones where they started adding hot dogs. And like, I remember my parents probably were like, what a special treat. Like, we'll get it with meatballs.
Extra, yeah.
Mm-mm.
Brigid is not happy.
Refuse, okay?
Going back to texture, SpaghettiOs, can't do them. They're like slimy.
I mean, I haven't had a SpaghettiO in years, but I feel like I would still like it.
Yeah. That wouldn't surprise me.
I ate them for a lot of my life. Turns out I was/am a very picky eater.
Yeah.
Very picky.
I was very picky as a child, for sure. And like for a while. I have expanded my palate, but probably my weird food class in college helped me get over that.
I'm like still your typical, like, I will order chicken tenders at any type of restaurant.
Oh, I would willingly take the kids' menu.
Oh, yes.
Mac and cheese, grilled cheese. Like, yes, please. I didn't even mean that to rhyme.
Nice poem. All right, so anyway, if we have
what do we do about it?
Eater,
what if they're a picky eater? What do you do?
First of all, you cry a lot because it's so frustrating.
So trying to like just feed and nourish your child.
Oh my gosh. I have a very picky eater.
Dude.
Like just very well, and this is interesting. So each of my children has gone through a different type of eating difficulties. T, when he was younger, struggled very much with foods and new foods and feeding himself. And so as he was going through OT, he started doing feeding therapy
specifically, yeah.
Which was amazing and wonderful, and I'll give some of those tips that we learned. But he now, since he's gone through all that, is better about it. He can at least try new foods. Jay, on the other hand, is like so picky to the point where he loves cheese sticks, okay, like string cheese. I bought the wrong brand.
Oh, no.
He ate one of them.
Mom.
And lost it. Like, absolutely, I ruined cheese sticks. It was horrible. It was a horrible mistake. And all I can think about is my poor parents bringing me SpaghettiOs with meatballs. I'm sorry.
Out of my face.
Oh, my gosh.
Now you know how it feels?
When I was a child, like preschool age, my lunch every day was a Miracle Whip and cheese sandwich.
That is the most disgusting thing I've ever heard
Miracle Whip
in my life.
and American cheese, and that's all I would eat. And if you made it mayonnaise and cheese, absolutely screw you, because I wouldn't eat it. Like,
that is foul. That is absolutely foul.
I was a very picky eater. Like, very picky.
We listen and we don't judge on that one.
You are so
Mike
judging.
Donna,
you can't even say that.
I'm not even going to judge your parents on that one.
Yes. No, because that was what I wanted.
Well,
sincerest apologies to Mike and Donna, who did not deserve a child like me.
In so many ways.
I'm so sorry.
Any tips on feeding therapy? Like, what does that look like? What is that? Okay, was that part of his OT?
It can be. Different hospitals around here do it differently.
Yeah.
So, like, we were going through Cleveland Clinic at first, obviously a big hospital, and they were able to just do it as part of his OT. And then we tried to switch to a different local hospital that it wouldn't be part of OT. It had to be separate feeding therapy. So sometimes it's OT, sometimes it's not, depending on if they're trained in it. But it was...
It can also, like, even, like, speech and language pathologists, sometimes they do, like, swallow. That would be more, like, a physical difficulty. If you have physical difficulties swallowing, something like that. So a little bit different, but you might hear an SLP do that, too.
Yeah, for sure. One of the big things they did was just expose him to the foods.
Huge.
Just put whatever food it was out in front of him.
Yep. And you keep doing it. Even when they say, I don't like blueberries, keep putting them on their plate. Like, because then they're just going to never be exposed to them. If you're like, okay, my 2-year-old said they don't like blueberries, then I guess that's it forever.
Yeah. So, like, especially for T, when he was doing this feeding therapy, they would go and it would be like 2 choices of whatever kind of fruit or whatever it was. And they would take it and put it on the plate. And never once throughout the course of this therapy, never did they tell him, take a bite, try it. Never once. That was not part of it. It was just like, here's this food on your plate. And typically it involved, a lot of the time for him, it involved animals, little animals.
Interesting.
And it would be like the animals might play and try to eat the food. Like, they want a little nibble or something like that. And that was a really big way that he started trying it, was like he would play with these farm animals.
And they were eating it.
And they would eat it. And so then, a bite for the cow. A bite for T. Like, and it did eventually kind of become that. And that was great and wonderful. But then that turned into every meal
had to be
at home also had to involve animals, which was worth it at the time. But then,
him fed.
weaning back from that also turned out to be very difficult, but it was worth it. A lot of the things they work on are once you are willing to touch it. Also, that was a big one. It was like you can touch it, lick it, smell it, hold it between your teeth, or take a bite.
Okay.
And so there's like different levels.
Yeah.
And you could pick which one you were going to do. Oh, I'm going to lick it this time, or oh, I'm going to smell it. And there was a distinction between just holding it in between your front teeth and actually taking a bite.
Chewing it.
Like if it was just hold it in between your teeth, you don't have to chew it and swallow it and put it all the way in your mouth on your tongue. Oh, I think, and as they were working him up to that, they would like put it on his lip and let him just kind of like lick it off.
Touch it, yeah.
And also allowing them to play with those foods, which is
let them get a little messy.
So the opposite of what you think, because I said, we don't play with our food. We do.
We do play with our food.
We play with our food.
We make it fun.
Because giving them that opportunity to experience it in many different ways is very beneficial. I am not saying take your 7-year-old to a 5-star restaurant and let them stick their hands in yogurt. But like when you're at home and you're feeding your toddlers to young elementary age-ish kids, like letting them play with it, even though it's gross or whatever,
it's messy,
it's that exposure that's good for them.
Absolutely.
One of the things we did towards the end of feeding therapy that was really cool was like a map. And so like he got really good at starting to try like a bite. But then he wouldn't eat
anymore.
He wouldn't actually eat it. So like he would try it, but he wouldn't eat it. And so it was like what they did for him was a road, because he was really into cars, like the movie Cars. And so it was like a road and different Cars characters. And so every bite he took, he got to put one of the Cars characters on the road.
On the road.
But it was like very simple of like, you could make it anything. You could do like a garden and they get to put a butterfly on every time they take a bite.
Yeah.
And that just like that physical reward of something other than just taking the bite. And it gets into that gray area of like, the reward should be that they're nourishing their body, whatever. Sometimes kids need that.
They need like an external reward. Yeah.
And so like, it doesn't mean you do that forever. It's about exposure. And so that was a really good one. We used to use that Cars map all the time. Every meal, it would sit on the table. Every bite, you got to put a little car. And he would get to pick which character he wanted and the order it went. And that was very rewarding for him. And then we would get bites. So
there you go.
Hip hooray, it worked for us. So that was great.
Worked for him, worked for you.
Yeah.
A lot of the same, one resource that I point a lot of parents, clients to is Kids Eat in Color. And that it's a lot of them are going to be the same. A lot of the tips are going to be the same, similar to like the feeding therapy. No pressure meal. So it's not just try one bite. It's not you have to. You're going to sit here until you finish your plate or whatever. No clean plate clubs, stuff like that. You do want to say you can eat it when you're ready. So something like that, giving it a choice instead of like, even when I don't like that. That's gross. You can eat it when you're ready. And again, with that exposure, just put it on their plate. Open and closed hours for the kitchen. That is an important one. The kitchen is closed. The kitchen closes at this time, which means right now the kitchen's open. It's open for business, right? You can have this is what's for a meal, or these are maybe 2 options or something that you have. And then the kitchen does close. And what that does is it limits them, obviously. So they can't just decide that they can eat whenever they want. But it keeps it kind of at intervals. So you open it for snack time and then you close it. And then it opens for lunch and then you close it. And whatever. On and on. So on, what is that I'm trying to say?
That's an interesting one. We do a lot because at my house with picky eating, it can turn into you're sitting at the table for hours for a meal. When like we've said we don't care if you eat it or like whatever, but like we will sit there for so long. So we've started to just like we will sit down to the table and we'll say like Alexa set a timer for 30 minutes and everyone's going to stay at the table for 30 minutes. And then at 30 minutes, everyone picks up their plate and takes it to the kitchen. And that's it. Like there's no...
sitting there forever and ever. Not,
right.
Yeah.
Like if you've made the choice to not eat it in that time, that's fine. But then you understand you don't get to come back to it late. Like it's done until we eat again.
Yeah.
And it actually has greatly improved their willingness to eat in that time.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That was a good one for us.
Yeah, that is a good one. Sit down to eat. I know this a lot. People want to, like, I'm just going to distract them. I'm just going to they're going to be watching the tablet and I'll spoon feed them. Again, that then backfires later on when you're trying to get them to eat any other time. And I understand why parents, adults, grown-ups do this, because it is very anxiety provoking. My kid's not eating. So they're going to, they need to eat to live. And so I really do understand why they're trying to do that. Grown-ups set the menu is a big one. You set the menu, you put something, you decide what's for dinner. We're not a shorter chef type of thing. It's not what do you want for dinner. Of course, you can ideally include things that your child likes.
So that's what I've always heard is
they'll eat something.
At least one thing on the plate needs to be a quote unquote safe food.
Something that they like, that that they like. And we know that, today we like mac and cheese and tomorrow we don't, a lot of times with toddlers. But yeah, that doesn't mean that you need to be like, the meal is caviar tonight.
Right.
And kind of like what you were saying, like the don't play with your food, make it fun. Cut it into fun shapes. It's Valentine's Day today when we're recording this.
Favorite.
It's coming out in a couple weeks. But yeah, like make it heart-shaped or whatever. Use a new fun utensil that's like the little truck or whatever. They have, different utensils, or have a fun placemat that makes it, or a fun little, oh my gosh, I loved my plates that had like characters on it or whatever, So yeah, make it fun.
And like the kid silverware, my kids loved their silverware. But now that they're getting older, they love when they get to use grown-up silverware.
It's like cool.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm like a big kid.
Okay, this just reminded me. I think it was a TikTok maybe that I saw of a mom trying to get her daughter to eat green peppers. Okay, so she had sliced them so that they were still a full circle. Okay, and so she asked her daughter, "Do you want a green pepper?" And her daughter was like, "No, I don't." And mom's like, "Okay." So she just keeps slicing them. She's like, "I'm going to slice a crunchy pepper. I'm going to slice a crunchy pepper." And kept calling it like a crunchy pepper. A juicy pepper, whatever. Her daughter's still not interested. And so then she looks at it and she's like, "Oh, it's like a bracelet." And she asks her daughter "Oh, do you want a crunchy pepper bracelet?" And so then her daughter puts it on, right? And so then she's like, "Oh, I'm going to nibble on my crunchy pepper bracelet." Mom does this. And so the daughter, from seeing, oh, this, first of all, we've added an adjective. It's a crunchy pepper.
It's crunchy.
And then we've made it something more fun than just food. Like, hey, do you want a pepper snack?
Right.
It's a bracelet now. And now you can eat this bracelet off your wrist.
Yeah.
And now the daughter's willingly going along with this without her mom ever saying, "Eat this pepper."
Yeah.
Or even saying to her, she asked her one time, "Would you like a pepper?" And she said no, and that she never asked it again.
Yeah.
She just kept presenting it in different ways, and her daughter ended up eating the entire pepper.
Wow.
So it's, yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah.
What else are we talking about?
There are and this is just also sets the precedent for having good body image and good relationships with your body and food as you get older. There are no good or bad foods, right? Something that's really big with this and with picky eating, and you'll see it in Kids Eat for Color. Kids Eat in Color, which is they have OTs that help author it. They have dietitians, so it's a bunch of different professionals. Don't make dessert special. Dessert's not special. Dessert's just part of the meal. So, it might be on your plate with...
Serve it at the same time.
Yeah, with your broccoli, with the chicken, with whatever. Because number one, we don't want to do, if you don't eat, those demands of, if you don't eat, then you don't get dessert. But also just don't make those treats super special and super oh, wow. And yeah, I'm not saying you have to give them a brownie at every dinner, but it just takes the novelty away from it.
Well, just when you're not necessarily going to have carrots at every meal.
Right.
You're not necessarily, that's just not necessarily part of your meal tonight.
Right. Just make it less exciting, because when we kind of value it of ooh, this is a thing I can't have, or this is special, this is sweet. So.
Well, and something similar we do a lot is oh, you did a great job at school, you can have ice cream or something. Yep. And you're using it as a reward then too.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's another great resource. Have you heard of any other resources?
Yeah, a couple that I love are obviously books, right? I mean, how often do we talk about books?
We love books. It's been a while, so we needed to bring it back in.
There's obviously lots of books at the local library about like different. I've seen ones that are about like, let's eat the color such and such.
Oh, sure.
Let's eat the color such and such. Let's eat the rainbow. And they're like board books that have these actual pictures of the foods, and it's just a picture book. And you just look at, that's an eggplant. Okay. Oh, that's purple cabbage. Okay.
That's cool.
Oh, that's a purple grape. And that's it. It's just looking at the pictures of the food.
Yeah.
And it's an exposure. So that's a great one for young ones. We have a couple books at my house that I absolutely love. I think there's more than one, or I think there's even more than two. We have two. One is called Addie and the Anteater, and one is called Addie Wants to Fit In.
Okay, Addie and the Anteater.
Yes, Addie is an ant.
Okay.
And so the one with the anteater, she's obviously afraid the anteater is going to eat her. And the anteater is not interested in eating ants.
Okay.
And that's different because
lucky for Addie.
Yes.
Yeah.
But unlucky for him because his whole family is anteaters, and they say
you're supposed to eat
this is what we eat. And so that's a struggle for this anteater. And then Addie Wants to Fit In. Oh, these books are by Jackie Lemenzo. Apologies, Jackie, if I did not say your name correctly. But they're great books. And then Addie Wants to Fit In is one that we've really taken to in my house because Addie, this little ant, her family of ants will eat any and everything. Okay. They love food. And they will always try any foods. And Addie feels very worked up about that.
Okay.
And her parents are always like, just try it, just try it, just try it. And she wants to. And every time she tells herself, I'm going to try this food and I'm going to try it. And then she goes to try it. She's like, but what if I don't like it? But what if it's not good? But what if? And everyone's looking at me, and now everyone's looking at me, and now I feel really nervous. And if I eat it and I don't like it and I make a face, they're all going to see me. And so it feels too much. And Addie just cannot
it's overwhelming.
Do it.
Yeah.
And so then Addie finally goes off on her own and experiences a new food. And she gets to try it on her own without anyone watching. And then she ends up taking it back to her family.
Sure, she loves it.
And it's beautiful and wonderful. And she has now introduced them to a new food. And it's great.
Nice.
It's a very cute story, and we like it a lot. And it also taught us something as the parents, because we were in that, like, eat it, try a bite. Good job.
Right.
No. Like, and it's crazy
and you're sitting
to
there
me.
together.
Because we're literally watching you and cheering for you as you take a bite.
Right.
And that's like, it's pressure. Whereas like, and I've noticed it with my picky eater in particular, when you're not watching him, that's when he'll try the bite.
That's when he's eating.
So like that added pressure of taking a bite, and you think like, oh, I should be encouraging them and cheering them on when they've done it. But like simply just ignoring it is sometimes the most helpful way for them, because they know it's a low pressure, low stakes situation.
Yeah.
Like I like it or I don't, I can
whatever. Yeah. I'm not going to get like applauded or booed.
Right. Exactly. Especially because when you're so little, all those eyes on you can feel very overwhelming.
It can feel, intimidating for sure.
And so then a note to keep in mind, like when it's holidays and when you're
and you're at like a big table with
and being not defensive, but being protective of your child. And when there are other adults who might comment, oh, we don't comment on their plates. Just like we don't comment on their plates. Like that's, frankly, what's on someone else's plate is not your business, right?
Right.
And sometimes your kids might need you to remind other adults in their lives. We don't comment on that. Whether it's a big plate, a small plate, whatever. I mean, how many times, I feel like, if it was a girl, it'd be like, oh, you barely have anything. You just have so little on your plate. And or vice versa. If it was the boys at the family get together, yeah, you got to get all those plates and you got to pile it up and you got to keep eating more. Like, no.
You should eat more and more.
Can we just stop talking about what people eat?
Right.
Like
too much, too little. Like,
who cares? Like, it's not your business. Don't ever look at what someone else's plate, right?
Has on it. Ever. Okay.
It's not your business.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, rainbow plate. We talked about that, obviously. So it could be literally like get something red, get something yellow, orange. I used to, a lot of times, it's so funny what was like meaningful to kids, like you can have these big extravagant days out. I fondly look back on having smiley face dinners.
Oh, really?
Where I loved them. And it's just what it sounds like. They just oftentimes it was when my cousins were babysitting that they would just kind of use whatever was like in the kitchen, whatever was in the fridge. So they might have little like triangle cheese for the eyes, or maybe it's like a cheese cube for the nose. And then the grapes are like little cheeks. And then there's whatever it is. And then you can even, because another big thing is like making it more enticing. You can have dips, you can have dressings, you can have, so maybe it's like the smile is hummus or peanut butter or, something like even like a spread. But yeah, I loved that. And I mean, depending on how many foods you want to introduce, sometimes my faces had cheeks, sometimes they had ears, sometimes they had hair, But yeah, I really liked that. So, and we want to like include kids in meal prep if they have, those stools and different stands, they can come up to the table now.
Or you can be like me and just use a kitchen chair.
That works.
We just push a chair straight up to the oven.
That works. Helping kids like be involved, because then they feel more a part of it and they're more likely to eat it. Like, oh, I want to try that because like I made it, right? I helped make it.
In theory, although I will tell you, Jay has gotten to the point with me where he will say, I'll help you make the dinner, but that doesn't mean I'm going to eat it.
That's really funny.
He's like, yes, I understand. And I will not be, I will help you stir the whatever, but that doesn't mean I'm tasting it.
That's really funny. I love how he like still is willing to help.
Oh yeah. Because he wants to help. He loves to help.
I'll do this.
But he's like, this does not mean that I'm eating this. It's disgusting. Okay.
Alrighty.
Oh,
I guess I could kind of see that. And also just like if you're like, ooh, like you see it raw versus cooked.
Oh,
then you're like, never mind, I don't want that. Now I know where it came from.
Yes. So cutting foods into fun shapes is one of my very favorite things. Mm-hmm. I love it. Every sandwich, I love to cut it into a different shape.
Have you fed your children in the last year? Because I used to get a photo of dinner every night so that I knew you were feeding your children, but I haven't in a while. So I'm worried that they're not eating.
They are, in fact, eating. Dinner is less often cut into fun shapes these days.
Boring.
I know. But lunches, like if I'm making lunch, that's still cut into fun shapes.
Yeah.
We did a couple weeks ago for the AFC championship. I cut their food into like a little arrowhead.
Stop.
And a little K, a little C.
How did you do that? That's so impressive.
I don't know. I mean, it didn't look great, but it was fun.
It got the idea. You got the idea.
And it's just like, I don't know. I just like it.
Do fun stuff.
And everyone's always like, "Oh, you're not going to cut their food into shapes in a few years. You're going to get tired of that." Like since they were like 18 months old, people
since they've been eating solid food.
And I still love it. 5 years and going strong. It doesn't mean I do it every meal, but like it's so fun.
It is fun. Or like to like you. Today, again, we're recording this on Valentine's Day. Strawberry milk, or put red food coloring in their milk. Like, just make it a little bit fun. St. Patrick's Day is coming up. Diet green. Like, green eggs and ham. Why the heck not?
Right?
Now, again, going back to the picky eating and even touching into the ARFID, but that might look gross. Green eggs, they might be like, absolutely not. Mm-hmm. So, be mindful of that. It might not work in your favor, and you need to know your kid. As always, you know your kid best. So
yes, but it can still be fun even if they wouldn't eat it.
Yeah.
Something that we do in my home and in my classroom is talking about foods as energy.
Yep.
And so like
what they do. What does this food like help your body do?
Oh, true. And typically the way we do it is just as simple of like protein is a long energy.
Oh, okay.
Or so like your milk is a long energy, but your gummy worms are short energy. And so then when you put it in those terms for a child, they more often want the long energy because they're like, I want to run around longer. So they're going to choose those foods that you're telling them
saying good or bad.
Right.
Or, like, healthy, unhealthy.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it is, I mean, even the gummy worms are going to give you those calories. They are going to give you the energy.
Yeah.
But it is going to be shorter lasting.
Those calories, that's true.
Calories. They should just call it that. Also, okay, in my children's classroom, their teachers refer to food as growing food, okay?
Okay.
In my head, when they said this, they meant foods that help you grow. That was what I thought it meant. It was like the foods that help you grow.
When you just said that, that's what I thought you meant. But growing foods. I'm seeing.
As it turns out, growing foods means food that grows. Or food that came from an animal that grew. So foods that grow are the foods that they encourage you to eat first, as opposed to your packaged cupcakes.
Yes.
Fascinating. So they never say eat your healthy food first. It's eat your growing food. Eat your food that has grown from something. And I think that's fascinating. It's cool.
That's so funny. I definitely thought you meant like food helps you grow.
That's what I thought it was. I was sure that's what it was. And they were like, no, like you're...
Like corn grows out of the ground. Yeah.
That is growing so funny. Food.
I love that.
And then that's a whole lesson of course, that's what they do in the school because they can talk about the farms and
this is
where it comes from and this is how you get it and the transportation and
on a tree or on the ground.
And now all of a sudden we've gone into all kinds of lessons that. Okay, I may have accidentally turned one of my children into a vegetarian.
Oh.
So
how'd you do that?
Brian, obviously we're Chiefs fans at my house. I shouldn't say obviously. Obviously to you.
Obviously into me, but to
not necessarily obvious to the
international,
listeners. Our international. To our listeners in Australia and England. And I think those are the only international countries.
We're talking about American football here.
Yes. Football. Chiefs. What are we talking about? We like something that Brian likes to do is like eat food of this sounds. I cannot believe I'm saying this out loud. It sounds so stupid. But like if you're the way it happened was we were playing Buffalo Bills, right?
Uh-huh.
And so he was like, we're gonna eat buffalo burgers for dinner.
Okay. Sure.
Because
eat the opponent.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I was like, I'm saying this and this sounds so ridiculous. Listen, my foreign friends, this is how Americans get about sports. We're weird, okay? So we're
get into it.
We are eating our enemies. So we're eating buffalo burgers the night of the football game.
Okay.
And he was like, I'm going to eat a buffalo? And we were like, yeah, it's a burger. It's made of buffalo. And he was like, does that mean the buffalo died?
Oh.
And we were like, well, yeah. And he's like, I'm not eating a buffalo. And we're like, no, like you eat, you've eaten like before. And he's like, I don't eat animals. I don't eat dead animals.
And you're like,
and
sorry, we got bad news for you. All the burgers you've been eating.
Brian's like, well, like chicken nuggets. And he's like, yeah, it's a chicken nugget.
Not a chicken.
And Brian's like, but it comes from a chicken. And he's like, a chicken that died?
Oh my gosh. The way you're saying it, it sounds just like him too.
A chicken that died? He's like, I'm not eating a dead chicken. I was like, well, you're not going to eat a live one either. So.
Yeah. If you're going to eat some kind of animal, let's hope it's dead and prepared.
So he may or may not ever eat meat again. Wait till he finds out that pepperoni on his pizza is also
an animal.
Yeah, I talk about how far we've come from feeding therapy with him. He still mostly eats pizza. But sometimes we can put like extra things on the pizza.
Yeah. Well, also that, I mean, I remember where I literally had to like hand feed him pizza. Like he wouldn't pick it up. And so he has come along.
He's feeding himself now.
Yes.
He is even feeding himself with utensils.
Yeah, that's an improvement.
Yeah, the next step is going to be to get him to use a napkin instead of his pants. Every time he eats lunch, his teacher comes up and she's like, I'm sorry, his pants are whatever color today.
I know.
Like, yeah, because he hates anything on his hands.
Mm-hmm.
And so food especially is disgusting.
Right away.
And he doesn't stop and think, let me pick up a napkin. He just wants it off. And so it's always all over his pants.
Yeah.
Now, if he would listen and put a napkin in his lap, like he has been taught.
That's what I was going to say. Then he could just wipe it in his lap.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Is that why our parents taught us to put napkins in our laps?
Kids do that. Kids, like, naturally rub it, like, on their pants.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating.
Yeah, my nephew does that. He also today requested a fork for his peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and he utilized it.
I was going to say, did you oblige?
I was like, yeah. First of all, I'm like, what harm is this going to do to give him a fork? One of his little kid forks. And yeah, I did. And then I watched him like stab the sandwich, pick it up and eat.
Now, he's still little, but is he little enough that you had to cut it up?
He's 2. So it was just half a sandwich. I didn't have to cut it up.
Yeah.
So he also requested that I cut it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I had not cut it, but he requested that I cut it, so I ripped it in front of him. And then he asked me for a fork and then stabbed it and just like ate it off.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. My children are the level of picky eaters that if you try to give them a cheese stick, they were like,
no.
Tea specifically, it's like, I won't eat that. You can take that cheese stick in front of him and slice it with a knife, and now it's little circles,
and he'll eat it.
Now he will eat it.
He will. Mm-hmm.
Like, what is wrong with you? I love my children. I swear I love my children, but there is something wrong with them.
Bridget often has to remind us how much she loves her children because
I often am like,
oh, so aggravating.
Also, P.S., you can do all of these things and try all of it.
They're still not going to eat.
And your kids still might not eat.
They're still not going to eat.
So sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
Also, it is so common for like the little bitties, like when they first start eating real foods, like, 8, 9 months to a year-ish to 18 months. My kids would eat any dang thing I put in front of them. And then I swear, like 18 months hit and it was like done. I will show my children videos. I'm like, you like this. Here's a video of you eating it at 2 years old.
I swear you like banana.
And they're like, I don't care. I never liked that. I'm like, you're literally watching yourself eat it.
This is you. Also, kids are going to go through phases where they don't eat as much, right?
Yes.
Like my nephew's there right now. The 1-year-old will eat anything in sight except for fruit. And the 2-year-old is like, all done. The 2-year-old that used the fork to eat the peanut butter and jelly, he took about 2 bites of that sandwich.
Oh my gosh.
And then all done, go play. And it just is like he's gonna come back around where he's eating more again and growing. And as long as, of course, it's not impeding their growth,
right? Check
in with the pediatrician and everything. But if they need like supplements or whatever, but otherwise they're gonna like self-regulate.
Yeah. Typically they will go through like they'll eat more when they need more. It's same with sleep. Like you see them sleeping more
when they need more sleep.
When they're growing and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
kids are great.
Kids are great.
So frustrating.
Make sure you feed your kids.
Please feed your children. Please. In many colors and many shapes.
Do it.
Amen.
Only fun shapes.
Yes.